All right. Well, it's Patrick Pitman with the Easier Business podcast, and I wanted to introduce someone that I've come to know over the last year who has certainly made some of my work easier in the e-commerce consulting that I do. And I guess I want to start for those who've listened to the Easier Business podcast. I talk about jujitsu. It's a practice of mine. It's something that earlier this year I moved to a new school, and I wanted especially to find training partners that would challenge and help me grow. I've been doing it for 10 years and wanted to move to a place where I just was around a community of people who were better and smarter and I could learn from them. That's really what so much is about, who you're working with. And so I just make that analogy because also at a similar time this past year, I found a community of e-commerce business owners that I felt could inspire and challenge me. And that was put together by Build, Grow, Scale. And so I have Matt Stafford here, who runs that and has been able to develop a community of e-commerce business owners that I think has built a lot of support for each other and done some really useful things as they develop a real focus on what matters most to be successful in e-commerce business today. So I'm glad to have you here, Matt. Thanks for joining me.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to having a good conversation.
Yeah, and I think what I was hoping to talk about was the community aspect of what you're doing, and that's really this idea of an Ecom Insider program that you've developed. And so I thought we could talk about what that includes and how it works, because it's something that I've experienced personally over the last year, and I have enthusiasm for what ways it's helped me and improve my business. And I thought we could talk about how that kind of came to be, because you don't just all of a sudden spring into action, hundreds of e-commerce business owners working and helping each other. It probably started, well, where did it start? It probably started with you on your own personal e-commerce journey. And what was that like?
Yeah, 100%. And I totally agree with you. I think that the community is the most valuable aspect of what we do, because you can get the information all over. We put out all kinds of free content. We have a blog, YouTube channel, etc. And so you can get content, but we say that that's a commodity. What you can't commoditize is a community of entrepreneurs that work together and share and grow, or even share their wins and losses of what they're doing. And so my ecom journey started when I had a store, and I was all by myself. I was figuring it out, and I was really good at Facebook ads to start with. I'd done a lot of the Teespring and t-shirt marketing. Actually sold, over $10 million worth of t-shirts. And so was really, really good at Facebook ads. And so I thought the e-commerce journey was going to be a no-brainer. It was just going to be easy. And so we opened a store, got started, and right off the bat, it took off. And we started doing hundreds of sales a day within the first probably 90 days. I thought, all right, this is it. This is what I'm going to do. And what I realized over time, Facebook kept getting harder and harder. And what would happen is they would do really good for a month or two, and then they would change something and everything would tank. And then they would do really good, and then they would tank. And it was super frustrating because we had a store where we had to ship inventory from China. And so we had to forecast way out. And when you go from doing, we got it up to almost, I want to say we were about 400 sales a day, down to 30 or 40 for a week, and then back up to 100. And then all this other stuff, it was super hard to forecast. And we ended up having actually about $200,000 or $300,000 in inventory sitting, and the Facebook ads just stopped working. And I was like, oh no, here we go again. I really don't want to deal with something like this. And so I was looking for a solution, and a friend of mine on Facebook was selling I think it was a 6 or 7 week mentoring in Google Analytics. And I thought, you know what? I need to dig into the data, because that's how I got good at ads. I meant to do that on the e-commerce journey. And so over that 6 to 7 week period, I really became a student and took it to as what I would say, and even he said, man, what you guys have done with it since then is just a whole nother level, because there's a difference between enhanced e-commerce and actually really diving into your Google Analytics and Tag Manager and stuff. So I used that information to optimize my store. And when I did that, the Facebook ads started working again. And so we were able to relaunch, or, have the business take back off again and sell an enormous amount of product. And so obviously I had several friends that were in the e-commerce space from when we were in the t-shirt marketing. And so to make sure that what I didn't just get struck by lightning and, it worked on my store, I reached out to a couple of them. I said, hey, I'd love to just like do some optimization on your store and see if what I'm doing is actually working and or will work for you too. And they're like, yeah, why not? Let's try it. And so the first example, he had done 2.7 million the year before in his store. And within 90 days, we had him at a $9.2 million run rate. And that 12 months, he ended up doing 16 million, not 9. So it worked. The other one they were doing.
When you say it worked, I think what you just described sounds remarkable. It sounds almost too good to be true in a way. But I think there's a lot of business owners who do reach a point where they feel like, I'm just kind of plateaued. I feel like I've stuck. And
Yeah.
when you said you went back to Google Analytics, on the one hand, that's kind of the moment maybe where everything changed, but it's also a pretty fundamental step. So it's not like that was like a secret magic thing that you discovered. I mean, a lot of people have heard of this, but there must have been sort of a shift in your mindset about what you thought was the answer. And I think that shift is this understanding of what you call revenue optimization.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
how did you apply that then to the next site and the next site? And what does that start to mean when you say that?
Well, at the time, my partner in the e-commerce store was really good at funnels, and funnels were kind of the rage, because this is like 7-8 years ago, and it took 7 years ago. And so I was looking at the store. The store's not really built to be similar to a sales funnel. It's really built to be an online store catalog, which isn't great for conversion. And so by using the analytics, I started applying to the store and tried to create like that funnel experience where one page leads you to the next and one leads you to the next, and what's the purpose of each page. And so in that process, we coined the term revenue optimization, because who cares if you go from 2.75 million to 9 or 16 and you don't make more money. Like the goal is, when you scale your business, you've already hit your break even. So now when you turn more dollars, it's more profitable, or you're generating more customers. So in the end, you make more money. And so that's why we said it's not really conversion rate optimization, because you can do that by running a sale. Your conversion rate's going to go up, but you don't necessarily net more money. And so for me, the goal was make more money, not just turn over more dollars. And so
Through discounting. You want to avoid the discounting death spirals.
Through any type of sales. If you can make every sale more profitable because it works better, or you convert at a higher percentage, you win. Because we all know that old saying that Dan Kennedy said, the business that can spend the most money to acquire the customer wins. And so when you're converting higher, you can spend more to acquire the customer. Or if you have perfected the journey to raise your average order value, then you can use that to acquire more customers. And the moment you can spend $3, $4, $5, $6 more per customer, you're in a whole new pool of buyers in these ad platforms that your competitors don't get. And they're typically better buyers, because the more you can spend, the higher quality buyer you get. And so the second store that I worked with, they were doing about 400 grand a month, and it was a print on demand site. And within the 5th month, we had them at 2.7 million. So they went on, and did huge numbers super successful. So it worked, and we were like, all right, this is legitimate. And at the time, everybody was selling Facebook ads and how to get better at ads. And so we just said, hey, traffic's not your problem. When you have 100 people come into your site and you're only converting 1.5 or 2 of them, and then you try to go out and buy another 100 visitors for another 1.5 to 2 sales, why don't you figure out how to make the journey better so that the 98 people that left, you get 2 more of them and you double your business. Then you can buy all the traffic you want. So
Yeah, I think that's such a key insight there. And it's really, I think, the basis of one of the things I've taken away from my experience in the Ecom Insider program here this last year. I have some of my work is in e-commerce consulting. I have a company called E-Business Pros, and one of our clients came to us with this desire to grow. And he had this sense that he was like, hey, Patrick, there's this new program I want to sign up for. It'll help me grow. It's about scaling Facebook ads. And all I need to know is like the secret ad stuff to mix together into the right ads. And that's where I feel like I can take off. And so what you just said is there's something almost that precedes that. You need to take care of what is on your store right now and the traffic the existing traffic that you have. And does that form sort of the basis then of what became this Ecom Insider community, is to teach that understanding and how it means, practically speaking, one step after the other?
Yeah, because if you think about it, and the way I thought about it is, if I'm really good at ads and I drive a lot of people to a unfavorable experience, they're going to remember that. And so the next time they see my ad, they're going to ignore it. So they're not going to click on it. And it might have been the right audience. And so I thought, like, man, I'm going to tone down the ads for a little bit, really dial in the user experience, look at it from the customer's view rather than me as a business owner, and then turn the ads back on. Because if I have a poor experience and I send a whole bunch more people to that, it's going to take me a lot longer to get them to come back, if they ever will. And so, I said, let's optimize the experience and then turn the ads up. And people really, that's typically what we do. We panic. And so we just think, oh, we need more traffic. And instead of, hey, let's like fix this so that they have a good experience. And what we realized was, once we fixed the store experience, our repeat customer rate went through the roof. So when they had a good experience, they were happy to come back again and again and again, which made us way more profitable, instead of always having to rely on the front end acquisition to build the business.
Mm. So I imagine then one friend led to another friend, led to another, and before you know it, you've got all these different websites you're responsible for running and building the revenue optimization around. When did it occur to you that you could open up and really develop a community of business owners who could help each other? When did that understanding come?
I was at the time, I was happy to be behind the scenes. And so I actually partnered with someone who had an education company, and he was using what I was doing as the teaching for the community. And that's what morphed into Build, Grow, Scale Ecom Insiders. And so it was really a journey of me learning how to get from behind my computer to then engage in a whole community of business owners and share what I was doing, rather than just kind of cherry picking the stores that I wanted to work on. Yeah. And I actually found that like filled me up way more, because I genuinely like to see people win. And I think you and I can talk about a couple of those wins, later on in the conversation. But that like really drives me to want to like keep digging into the data and finding more stuff to share with people.
Yeah. Isn't that a bit of a shift for you though? Because I think about Google Analytics, I think about the understanding of ad creatives and that sort of careful mapping out of what the purpose of each page is, applying what you said as that kind of funnel understanding of when someone's browsing a whole big catalog, they can bounce all over the place, but you start to bring that understanding of this page leads to the next page, leads to the next page. It kind of helps them move through the buying process. That analysis, how does that translate to then all of a sudden you being in some ways a coach?
Well, because we're on the back end, we're on the back end of, hundreds of business owners, and have insight on that. And what you realize or what you see over and over is, one, we only get so far. We can get them all dialed in and working, but then it felt like there was still plateaus. And so what I realized is, the business owner themselves is usually the bottleneck to the business, because when they get some coaching, or they get some mental aspect worked through, their business would then increase again, even though they hadn't really changed much on their site or changed their people. So that kind of was another aha moment for me, in that the business owner is the bottleneck. And so being in a community where you can share, get advice, talk about what you're going through, not be the only one or feel like you're the only one dealing with it. It gives you the accountability and the motivation to work through certain things, and your business will increase that way too. So there's more than one perspective of how to increase your business. And you don't get that through just the analytical reverse engineering. You really get it through the community. And I realized that, I'd love to claim like, oh, I knew that was going to happen, but it kind of happened organically. And we realized, wow, we have a lot of really smart people here that deal with a lot of the same internal stories. And when they share it, someone says, oh, I used to have that same story too. And then all of a sudden they don't feel like this loneliness, because it's very easy to get that being behind a computer all by yourself every day.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, you and I both witnessed that earlier this year. We were together at a workshop, sitting around the table, and there was someone else in your ecom community sitting there, and the questions were kind of coming back around, well, if you know this is something that you can do, why haven't you done it yet? And there was all this other busy stuff they have to do, and all these other little things I thought were important. And there was this moment where there was a time, I think you asked a couple hard questions about really coming clear about what the highest priority is. And now the year has unfolded, and we've been back at the similar table with the same person around the room. And it really is like a 10x story. And we can keep that person's privacy in this conversation, but I think, so many programs have, like, on the headline at the top, 10x your business. And I've personally seen that happen, at least in this particular case that I'm thinking of, that I think we're talking about.
Yeah.
What is it you think that person found in the Ecom Insider program or community that was able to make that kind of 10x difference in a 1-year period? Because I think that just sort of captured my attention. I personally witnessed it play itself out over the course of this last year.
Yeah. So to give some context to it, it was a fairly new business, and he's a young individual. And so he started making money, and you can actually, in fact, he posted his stats in the community just a few days ago, kind of giving the year-end recap. But he had this really good rise, and then all of a sudden there's a huge dip in it. And that was just before he came, or that was just when he came to that second workshop. And so we started talking about it. And what we realized when I was asking those hard questions was his store was working. It was him that wasn't accepting that he was actually internally valuable enough to make that much money, which everybody else was thinking that it was going to be about these tactics and what we could do to further optimize the store. And so what we realized, we got to an underlying belief of like his own self-worth. And so he was literally, he had kind of hit a glass ceiling of what he thought he was worth. And so he wasn't doing the work to keep the store climbing. And so we literally had a couple conversations around that. And you can see right after the workshop, he's taken right back off again. And, I do weekly calls with him to help him, or bi-weekly calls. And he ended up hitting $1 million in his first year in a very profitable store. And so Yeah, it's not necessarily tactics or tricks or whatever. Sometimes it's literally just an internal belief. And I feel very grateful that I get to see so many business owners that I can recognize something like that and be able to help, rather than have it just be tips and tricks and hacks that work now. I've always been very principle based. And so the stuff that we teach works year after year after year, because it's way more about human behavior than it is about the latest thing. And so, yeah, I think that's, we see it happen over and over, because lots of them build those types of friendships with other entrepreneurs that they relate with inside the community.
Yeah, well, we've talked about the community being a part of this Ecom Insider program. So maybe we should say what else it includes. And I think that one of the things that's important is there is a resource of online courses or reference materials you can go through. I'm thinking about one that I've referenced around user testing, and like, this is the steps for user testing, and like all spelled out. And so I can go and reference that, or I can pass that off to someone on my team and say, like, hey, this is our user reference SOP. This is, user testing SOP. Here's how we do it. So there's that aspect. And then there's sort of a monthly magazine, I would say, more like a publication that comes out, like, here's what's happening. Here's what we've learned in the last month, or
Yeah.
here's what's timely for the fourth quarter with respect to email marketing, or like there's a learning kind of aspect, almost a recipe sometimes, in terms of email automations and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's,
So
go ahead.
the way that we have BGS set up is that we actually have partner stores. And so we're not teaching theory or whatever the latest thing is. We're actually teaching what we're doing with our partners. And so, we're in the e-commerce world doing this every single day at pretty high level, that we have about 35 people right now. And so the number of hours that get put into data and analysis throughout the week, we kind of curate that. And then at the end of the month, we write an article about what's going on, create a marketing campaign that we've seen be successful that you can repeat in your own business. So if you just took that article each month and installed that one thing into your business, at the end of the year, you would have 12 more different ways of capturing customers, nurturing them, turning them into buyers, maybe repeat customers, et cetera, and optimizing that experience. So I really feel like it's not these big home runs that really make the difference in your business long term. It's that single every day. If you hit a single every single day, after a few days, every day is a run. And so by just having that mentality of, you chunk it down, you don't get overwhelmed, you just take one thing at a time and you work your way through it. Before you know it, you look back and you have this whole road laid out that's a super solid foundation for a good e-commerce business. That literally, our business is more than half of our life, or half of the hours that we spend in a waking day. It's super important. It kind of fuels our how we live our life with our family, the fun stuff we do, et cetera, the goals and dreams that we have. And so in order to do that, you have to be, I believe you have to be very systematic, because otherwise it becomes overwhelming.
Yeah. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur for 22 years. And I think what you just are speaking to really transcends the e-commerce space. It's not, when we talked about Google Analytics, and we can talk about, checkout optimization, but when you say helping break down just hitting those singles, showing up and be consistent, following through on things, and then turning to others for support who can help you learn the lessons that they've already learned. That's not just so much about e-commerce. That's also just a great way to approach any business, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you look at the people that are the greats, like every single one of them, they repeat the same thing. Like, it all goes back to, like, or people would witness what they would do. They would practice the fundamentals every day. And so it's really, to me, we've curated a set of principles that are the fundamentals that you have to do every day. And then It doesn't mean the other stuff doesn't have to get done, but if you have someone else that's doing the split testing and figuring all that stuff out and then presenting it to you, that saves you an enormous amount of time, effort, and in many cases, like the amount of data that we have is more than in 1 week or a month is more than you'll have in your store in a year or two, just because of the volume. And so like the nuances and the things that we get to pick up that we can share with you, you'll never see them. You can't see them on your site because there's not enough data there to give you that advantage yet.
Yeah. So let's recap what's in the program. There's this community of support. There's Facebook group. There's all kinds of interactions there. There's these online courses that are references across specific topics. There's this sort of monthly publication that's sort of what's new or what's seasonal or timely right now.
Yeah.
But then I think there's another part of it that has been very practical. And that is on a weekly basis, there's basically Q&A sessions.
Yeah.
And they break themselves across certain topics. One's more tech focused, one's more copywriting focused. The one that I've given more attention to is, I don't know, it's the jam session, but it's kind of revenue optimization focused. How do you take the store and tear it down and then help you build it back up again?
Yeah. That the way that started is because if you think about it, if you have a community of entrepreneurs, some of them are doing $1 million a month, some of them are doing $10,000 a month. So how do you give information, or if we produce information, how is it going to be applicable to everybody? Once they have those principles in place, how do you then go, okay, I need another set of eyes? And so with these phone calls, when we're looking at your site or we're giving you advice, it's applicable to you, rather than it being this like blanket approach of like, hey, one size fits all, because that's just not true. And so by having these calls, it gives the people at different levels, someone that's at a lesser level can see a store at a higher level or talk to a business owner and grow and learn that way, or vice versa. You see the wheels turning and the journeys that people are going through. And we just say a rising tide raises all ships. And so by having that, we're not giving one size fits all. We're literally able to curate the community in a way that everybody gets what they need from it.
Yeah. And I certainly have had that experience where I've taken clients of mine that have their own e-commerce sites. I've taken them to the jam session and had them, people like yourself and Mark and others who were there to say, tear it down. And I can just like, why was I blind to not seeing that before? How is it that fresh eyes from you can suddenly see the big glaring thing that I'm blind to?
Yeah, well, that's actually how our brain works. So like when you get banner blindness to what you see all day, every day. So like you could, back when we used to drive to offices and do the different things or take your kids to school, you can get in your car, do that entire thing, drink a Starbucks, eat a sandwich, and not even remember if you went through the light or stopped at the stop sign or whatever. Yeah. So when you do something over and over, which you're always looking at your store, your brain automatically automates it so that it saves your computing power for other things that are more important. So we have that same struggle. And so what we do to combat that is we have enough people on our team that we do site critiques of each other's sites, because when you're on it all day looking through the data, you just don't see things that pop up. And so by doing that, it constantly keeps that engine turning and keeps it new. There's nothing you can do other than be in a community or have other people that do that with you in a way that
sometimes though I almost started to feel a little defensive, like, oh well that's because because that's because, you know, and I see it in other people. So it's, I think maybe one of the things that sort of holds that runs consistent across people in your community is you're looking for people who you've told me are coachable.
Yeah, teachable, coachable. Because if you're going to come there and then and want help and then argue everything that's seen, like you're really not going to get the benefit, and you're going to be negative. And in all reality, like we want people that are, I mean, you've seen it's a very family oriented community. We call it a family. We want people that we like and that are want to get better, not that are like set in their ways. That's just not a fun aspect to it. And so, yeah, if you already know it all, then you don't need us to teach you. But if you actually want to grow and learn and expand and see things from a different, I really think that's the time when you grow, is when you're willing to see different perspectives. If you really feel like you've already got it figured out, then you're not looking for new things to innovate. You think you are right. And so at that point, as soon as that happens, you quit growing.
Yeah. So you've got to have the commitment to show up, to keep hitting those singles every day. You've got to have some ability to be coachable, to be able to take input, to learn new things. But I think we've also talked about how important it is to follow through.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's hard. That's the hard part, isn't it?
That's where the honestly, that's where the accountability works. It's really funny. Another human nature principle is we'll do more for other people than we will for ourselves. Or like, if I give you my word, I'm going to show up and work out with you every morning or 3 days a week at 8 a.m. If I get up that morning at 7 and I don't feel like it, I still go because I don't want to cancel. But if I don't have a workout partner, and I get up at 7 a.m. and I don't feel like going, I miss a day. And so like that community aspect creates accountability, and that accountability it's amazing how that little bit of accountability gets you to do things that you don't necessarily always follow through for yourself. And we've actually started creating these little accountability groups, and we're seeing like huge results from it. Because people will, in their head, they'll think this task is going to take like 3 days, but before the accountability call, they're like, oh, I got to get this done. And they buckle down and then they do it. It's something that they've had on their list to do for a year, and they got it done in 3 hours. And they're like, oh my goodness, I thought this was going to be like 3-4 days. And it was really like 4 or 5 hours or 3-4 hours of just like solid focused work. And now it's in my business and it's working. And so there's all these little things that it's not just about revenue optimization or tips and principles and all that other stuff. It's literally human nature, and breaking yourself out of really a grave is just it's a rut. It's got two sides. It's a rut with two sides on it. And so what we're trying to do is get you out of your own head, get into the community, and use that to grow and move forward.
Yeah. This is the Easier Business podcast, and sometimes it gets easier when you learn to delegate. And there is a matter of things following through, but it's also not necessarily all about you doing it. You have to understand where you can delegate across a team. So it is the case that you now have this EI Assist program too. What's that about?
Yeah, so what we realized, we did a bunch of workshops last year and used them to get feedback on how we could improve the community. And what we realized, a lot of what we were teaching that we know works every time, over and over and over. We've done it for years, and we've been teaching it. Some of the community members hadn't instituted on their stores yet, and we're like, man, how do we solve this? And so what we did was we took some of our team and created this little group called EI Assist, where when we put out one of those marketing magazines, you can actually now come in and say, hey, I want to have this implemented on my store. And we're using, overseas staff. So instead of you having to hire someone, teach them what we're teaching, then oversee them, make sure that they actually understood, our team that's doing it every day on these other stores can now do it for you, and we charge $12 an hour for it. So it's not us trying to make more money. It's like we want to help the community be more successful, because the more people that are successful in there, they're going to share what's winning, what's not working. And literally we learn and grow from that too. If we're just relying on the 10 stores that we have, we're only going to know the knowledge from those 10 stores. But when we have a community of 160, 200 people, and they're all sharing that stuff, we get ideas from that too. And then we go test them on our stores and bring back more. So like we learn and grow from that. The more people that are sharing and interacting and getting wins, we all win from that.
Yeah, I can see how that the idea of here's a great idea, unless it's applied and really implemented, there's just not as much learning. And
Right.
if you have a broader community applying that clever idea, because there is some innovation going on, right? It's
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
all common sense and all data, A/B testing. There also is somehow there's an instant of an idea. You can apply it to one of your Amplify partners and then share with the community.
Or someone in the community puts a new wrinkle on something that we've taught and it works better. That happens all the time. Then they share it and then we're like, oh wow, that's great. And then we try it on our bigger stores. So yeah, like we for sure have no ego. Like hopefully you witness that inside there. When someone shares something, we're not like trying to defend ours. We're like, wow, that's awesome. We're gonna try that. And then we'll give you our feedback too, see if we can make it even better yet. And that's where over the first, when we were doing the live event, I know we had, over 130 people, hit their $1 million mark, and another 37 or 38 people hit the $10 million mark inside the community through all of this stuff. And so that amount of knowledge and sharing, it creates more and more success.
Yeah. So for someone who's thinking this is sounding appealing, I suppose the place to go is buildgrowscale.com.
Yep. And on there, it'll give you the entire breakdown of the community, what it costs. It's a monthly program. We used to sell it by the year. Now we sell it monthly because we felt like that puts the onus on us to continue to innovate and provide value and make the community better. Because at any time, if you don't feel like you're getting the value, you can just stop. The other thing is if that feels like a stretch for you to join, a monthly continuity, we also have a boot camp where you can go through for 3 days and kind of see the inner workings of what we do at a high level and understand if you actually think that would be valuable for you. And both of those are on the site. So you could go there and look up the guided mentoring, which is the Ecom Insider community, or you could join the boot camp. I think it's 3 days for $33. So
So it's a pretty simple way to just get a little taste of the kinds of things that are going on there. And then the broader Ecom Insider program, it sounds like there's not a lot of pressure around, okay, now's your only time to sign up. Instead, you can find the right time. But it is coming, at the same time, the longer you wait, there's also the less chance for you to learn and adapt and realize the kind of results that other people in your community are realizing. I think go ahead.
But I was just going to say, I do think, and I'm certainly not a doom or gloom person, but I do think it's going to get harder for a while. We're seeing that across e-commerce. And so I believe more than ever, you need other perspectives and you need other people to help and learn and grow from, because they're going to see things that you don't see. And so honestly, when it's really easy and everybody's winning, the community is probably not as important. I believe that like the time that we're going into right now, the people that have a community or have accountability or have access to what's working right now, not something that someone's been, was teaching a year ago, because this is a living, breathing organism. E-commerce is maturing. And so I think that community aspect is more important now than ever.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said for that, and being able to rely on others when you start to run out of ideas. I also think sometimes there can be hesitation among people who say, well, I've already got so much I've committed to. I've already got all these things I have obligations to, and now one more thing I've got to show up and be accountable for. But you said earlier in our conversation that you as the business owner, that's really who we're talking to here, isn't it? I mean, we're talking about a community of owners, of people who have partner stakes and have a lot invested. And you said you are the bottleneck in your business. That's probably true for you too, right?
100%. Yeah. I've noticed the more that I do work on me, the better I serve the community and the easier it is to grow. And then again, like part of the reason why we're switching, one of the jam sessions is to make it all about the business owner and the mindset and stuff like that, because we realize through this process. Like we're iterating and growing and getting better, just like we want you to do on your store. We're doing that with this community aspect and trying to make it better. So 100%, as I grow, the deeper and more insight that we actually give the community from a business owner perspective, not just revenue optimization.
Yeah. Well, thanks for talking with me about how this program has come to be and how it's evolved over the years. Some of that certainly I've found value in and hope that some of my listeners do as well. Is there anything else that you feel like it's important for us to know about before we wrap up?
Actually, I really enjoyed the interview. I think like one of the things that I've enjoyed about you at the workshops is you're just very thoughtful and precise. And I think
We covered it.
yeah, I feel like we did, other than, obviously I want more people in there because I enjoy the community aspect of it. And I really get a lot of enjoyment out of seeing people grow and learn and be successful. So yeah, I mean, hopefully some of your listeners enjoyed it too, and they would love to join.
One of the things when I have these kind of conversations, sometimes I ask at the end if there's an idea that someone could share, that someone can apply in their business right now before they sign up for your program or before they're ready to commit in that way. And I don't know if you're up for sharing this one, but there was something that I've seen you describe a couple of times that is so fundamental and it feels kind of obvious to me, but I think people should hear it. And that, if you're willing to talk about it, it has to do with a post-purchase survey.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what's the 2-minute version of someone's thinking about someone to apply in their business that makes it a lot easier? Would you be willing to share what you're doing in that way?
Yeah. So a lot of what it was I read a lot of this human behavior and psychology stuff. And so we put a lot of effort into trying to get someone who left back to the store. And what we thought is like, how about we find the people who just purchased and ask them a question, because they've already got the chemicals flowing. They've already said, oh, I know, like, and trust you enough to give you money. So we ask them a very simple question. What's the one thing that almost caused you not to buy? So now what they do is by getting that response from a lot of different people, we're actually finding the friction points on the website. Then we can go back in, dial those in. And what happens is that gives us real-time feedback on what wasn't clear. So from a customer's perspective, what I was going to say, or where I thought you were going, was I always say it over and over and over on our jam sessions. As soon as I look at a site, I can tell you 100% if it's the business owner looking at their site from the business owner, how do I make more sales? Or if it's the business owner looking at it from the customer's point of view as to how smooth is the journey, how easy is it, navigatable, is it overly, is there a hierarchy of focus or congruency from front to back, or, all the different principles that we teach. And so there's both. Like one, those customers are telling us what part of the journey has bumps for them. And so we take that and we use that to optimize. And it's absolutely been gold for us year after year after year. And the cool thing is, even when the store gets better, then we get new responses. And so it doesn't ever end. It's literally a refresh of giving you good ideas of what to go then work on your site or make it clearer.
Yeah. I think there's also two little details that, if you would, there's something about timeliness or urgency of getting that feedback and some incentive. How do you just, you give a little more detail there?
Yeah. So it only works if it's within the first 48 hours, because people will forget. And so we send them that very first email within a couple hours and say, hey, this is only good for 48 hours. We're going to bribe you. We want your feedback. And so we'll give you a gift card, or that's one of the incentives we use. And you can use, like, we use a $25 gift card because there's perceived value in it, but the cost of goods may be much less. And so if your average order value is like $50, you give them a $25 gift card, they got to come back and spend more money. But the other thing is, If they have money to spend, that's totally different than a discount. If it's a discount, they know, okay, hey, you're just giving me money off. I'm still gonna have to spend my money. But when you give them the gift card, now they have cash to spend. It's not their money, or it's their money and it's your money and they're spending it. Totally different mindset. So you got to do it in the first 24 to 48 hours so that it's still fresh in their mind. And then the other part of that is, if someone comes back and buys from you again, before they even receive the first product they ordered, over time, it's been proven that there were 6 to 7 times more than the average customer. So every one of those people that fills out that survey gets the gift card and then comes back and buys, they're 6 to 7 times more valuable. And we've watched that and tracked it. We've actually found that it's quite a bit higher than that on the sites that continue to put out new stuff, because people just keep buying and buying and buying.
Yeah, and I think you've also described some of the economics there. The whole idea of that post-purchase survey can really be self-funding. Right?
Yeah, we thought it was. We actually, when we first started doing it, we went to the owner and asked, said, hey, we're going to need a couple $1,000s to kind of fund this data research. And what we realized right away, after the first 7 days, we were actually making money from it right away. And so we've never shut it off. It's been running 6 years on the one site, and it's never been shut off. We have thousands of responses, thousands of customers, hundreds of thousands of dollars that are attributed to that post-purchase survey on one site.
Yeah. And so I think that idea applies, again, as some of the other principles do, beyond just the e-commerce business owner. For those who listen and feel like they have the business model is a little different, I think that still principle applies, and a lot of good sort of broader business wisdom coming through the community that you built. So I'm glad to see that you're bringing it to new people and we're able to share what's going on with it. I think probably we could stop here, Matt, and call it a day.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you very much. Really enjoyed it.
All right. Thank you.